All right. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to tell you about my next guest, Mary Ann Korenic. And she is my friend that I met in the universe, the cosmos that descended down through LinkedIn. Thank God. Thank you. Shout out to LinkedIn for connecting us. She is the CEO of the Wintrust Wealth Management. Wintrust Wealth Management. Am I saying that right?
Chicago Trust
CEO of the
Company.
Chicago Trust Company,
Yeah,
which is a division of Wintrust. And
correct.
so we're so excited to have her because let me tell you something, y'all. You got to know the power of your story. And she throws her story out there. I actually it vibrated to it because what you seek is seeking you. And we connected. So, Mary Ann, I'm so glad that you are here with us. And I want you to start off with who you are, what you do, a little bit of your background, and tell us about your family. Let's just start right there.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to
Yes.
your podcast, Diana. I am so honored to be here today.
Yes.
Where to start? I think the most important thing about my childhood is that both my parents were not born here. They immigrated
Yes.
here separately from the former Yugoslavia. I'm 100% Croatian. My parents came here with nothing and followed their American dream and had four children. I'm the youngest of the four, only by 3 minutes. I have a twin brother.
Ah,
Um,
I love it.
and so, I think the most important part about my childhood and my upbringing was that dream big mentality that my parents had. But it came with a lot of sacrifices that they made for us, and they instilled a lot of values in us, like hard work. So
Mhm.
I've worked since I was 12 years old. I know that's
Mm.
probably not legal in a lot of states, but right down to having a teacher tap me on the shoulder and say, "You want to be the bus girl at the Friday night fish fry at the Thornton American Legion Hall." That's hard work, and coming home smelling like
Yeah.
fish and ranch dressing was not fun. For $25 a night, and we thought that
Oh,
that made
wow.
us rich, right?
Yeah.
So from 12 years old, from those jobs to babysitting to working customer service and retail, and obviously led to some big dreams for me. Um, Early on, however, I did know that I had a gift. I had a gift for speaking up, speaking out, and sometimes getting myself in a little trouble for that.
Yeah.
We can touch upon that a little bit later. But I,
Mhm.
I kind of figured out by the time I was in a junior in high school, I wanted to be a litigator and an attorney.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, and so that was a dream of mine. College just seemed to be like, a stepping stone to what was ultimately law school. And I know you're nodding your head because you're feeling the same.
Yes.
And so, that part, my parents really instilled the importance of education.
Mhm.
And so for many reasons, their children's paths have, took a lot of different directions. And while my siblings are all very successful, I was the only one to go to college, finish, and then let alone go to law school. So they had
Mhm.
very high hopes for their baby girl.
Yeah.
And so I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of
Yeah.
finishing, school within the time frame with it, which I was allowed
Yeah.
before the
Right.
financial end would be cut off. Um, and so, and a lot of my success through my educational career came from those values that my parents instilled.
Yes. This is what
Because I
I
didn't
love.
have those opportunities. My mom had a
Right.
sixth grade education. She was a cleaning lady. My dad didn't have any formal post high school education, and he was a carpenter, a finished carpenter
Mhm.
for 42 years. I'm proud. A lot of his work is within one of the buildings that I work at downtown.
Wow.
He's worked for a lot of different families, and
Mhm.
at one point, I remember not being too proud of being a blue collar family. You kind of go through that period of
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
But I'll share a story. Remember that first time you came home from college and you thought what didn't stick,
Right. Of course.
you know,
Right.
and you're doing your thing. You got all the freedom in the world away at school. Come home, that freedom goes away as the youngest daughter. My dad told me on a Saturday night, "You're going to my Christmas party with me because your mother is sick." And I thought to myself,
Wow.
"It's Saturday night. I'm not going to a party with a bunch of carpenters, right?" And
Right.
well, you didn't say no to my dad for sure. And I go to this party, and I'm not joking. He wasn't the boss, right? But if one guy didn't come up to me, 30 did, just to tell me how amazing my dad was and
Wow.
how my dad had taught them so many things, and their trade and their skill and their art.
Mm.
And a lot of them were like, "Your dad's pretty mean." I'm
Mhm.
like, "You don't
Yeah.
have to tell me, you know. But that was one of my proudest moments. Just
I love
hear,
that.
it's kind of like with your kids, you can tell your kids they're great, but when other people tell you how great your kids are, it's just the most,
Yes.
touching compliment that you can take. And I took a lot away from that. It was humbling for me too, because
Mhm.
I realized very quickly that my shit didn't stink.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I meant that it did. I meant that it
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
So,
I love 2 very profound things you said. Number 1, your childhood was very, like, difficult from the standpoint of not fitting in, right? And that had to have a profound impact upon you and your father. I've always said that there's such a beautiful dance between a father and her daughter.
mhm.
And anytime I get to lean into people who actually had that growing up, it just makes me smile. How does that impact the way you work today? How does that formative years and those learnings and how you understand that you didn't stink, how did that prepare you as you show up today? Frame you.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things I don't tolerate very well is mediocrity.
Mm,
What's the least I can do and still keep my job? What's the
mhm.
least I can do and still save my marriage? What's
Did
the
y'all hear
least I
that?
can do?
Rise up, land,
There's
the
like
least I can
no
do.
room in my life for mediocrity, and I honestly think it's one of the aspects of my life that led to my first marriage failing. And because I had these dreams and these goals, and nothing was going to stop me. And
Mhm.
this is not just what my parents wanted for me, but what then I, as an adult, a young adult, realized I want for me. And
Right.
then you become a parent, and now you want it for yourself and your family.
Mm,
So I just can't stress. I guess where I sit back today as leading a company of 54 employees, and I watch, of every generation, I sometimes find myself feeling pretty old, like, well, back in the day when I was your age,
rolling it
you know,
uphill.
but it's different. We have to adapt too as leaders,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because, there's a lot of things I did wrong early in my career, to the
Mhm,
detriment, yeah, of my
mhm,
kids and other, just you have to prioritize things, you have to make a living, you have to support
mhm.
them. But there's ways that I could have gone about it differently. I think that mediocrity is what really
Mm,
stands out in the
mm.
answer to your question, because
Yeah.
I still feel like you can. I hate the word balance. It's not a balance.
Mhm.
It's prioritizing. It's
Yes.
making sure that you take time for yourself. You take time for the ones you love, but you
Right.
also, here's one thing I've been telling a lot of young folks. We've got
Mhm.
a really robust internship program at Wintrust happening right now for over a couple hundred college students.
Wow.
4,000 applicants, and a couple hundred get to work at Wintrust, and they're so energized and proud, and they want to learn. But what I've been telling people is stop thinking about yourself so much and start
Mm,
thinking in terms of what is it that I can do to make a difference for the company.
mm,
And that mentality doesn't exist as much as it used to.
mhm,
I think when we start, because for me, when I did that, it all came back to me. But one of the best
mhm,
mentors in my life said to me, Marianne, I don't have all those initials next to your name like you do, but I learned one thing very quickly. You get what you give.
mm.
You get what you give. And she taught me the importance of giving back to the communities and
Mm.
doing that type of volunteer work in conjunction with the rest of your career and your life and your personal life. And it just kind of all comes together. For
Yeah,
some of us, like
yeah,
myself, late bloomer over here,
yeah, yeah,
but I don't want that for younger folks, especially the
yeah,
ones that I mentor. I want them to realize that much sooner than I ever did.
yeah. So let's break it down. Because in the culture today, we do think about ourselves, right? We are all about showing up as ourselves, sorta. It really requires us to get to know thyself, right?
Uh,
And it sounds like in order to do good for your company, you really need to know yourself so that you're not always focused on yourself. Y'all hear that? Like this
Yeah.
is a dynamic. So let's break it down. How does one really get to know thyself and be comfortable with thyself to know what it is that you can contribute so you don't sound like chat gpt or a bot? How do
Hmm.
you do that? Give me a little nugget of what a young person you would tell a young person, or even a grown woman who has realized she just been checking the boxes and showing up with this fake smile.
Right,
What do
right.
you tell her or him?
First thing I would say is just network. Don't be
Mhm.
afraid to reach out to people that aren't like yourself. You have
Mm.
so much to learn from others that are different than you. Look, you and
Mhm.
I, we felt different when we went to law school, right?
Right.
I felt so intimidated, so insecure. Nobody, my family were attorneys or professionals.
Mhm.
You know, jump out of that box and understand
Yeah.
yourself. The other thing is be honest with yourself. You got to
Mhm.
ask for feedback, but you got to expect some negative feedback and figure
Mhm.
out what those strengths are. If your strength is you're very, you know, detail orientated and you're not a people person, there's a lot of strength in that. And that's much needed in today's workforce. If you're an
Yeah.
outgoing person and you got to be the star of the show and you got all these great ideas and everything, figure out a way to express them and find a safe place.
Mm,
When I say safe place, I mean a
mm,
safe employer that
mm,
encourages that type of development. I mean, one of my
mhm,
greatest rewards now at this stage in my career is watching the development of somebody's career from start
mhm,
to here's what I want, here's where I want to be a few years from. What path do you have for me, Marianne? And I'm able
mhm,
to clearly define that path. You put in the work,
mhm.
you put in the dedication, we'll invest in you. Find an
Yeah.
employer that cares about you that much to think about, not just 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Have a succession plan, all those things.
Mhm,
And then
mm,
as leaders too, and I think you know this about me, but for your listeners, you got to be so fearless when it comes to sharing your story and all the bad stuff about your story.
mm,
Because there's a lot of bad stuff and a lot of baggage along the way. People see me and they see CEO, oh, big company, all that. No, no, no. It took years and years of grit and
mhm,
hard work and dedication. And yes, a lot of failures to get to
mhm,
this point and a lot of
mhm.
learning along the way, you know.
Yeah.
So,
What you say is so valuable, and I just want us as listeners to break down what she said, because honestly, when you look at the production of the efficiency of a person, you have to break it down to its finer parts. One, you said, "Gotta speak up, you gotta talk to people." And I really think this is you and I do share this in common. Someone who may be a little bit more reserved might find that to be very uncomfortable, but that is a point of knowing and knowledge. And the other aspect of what you said is safety. Mentorship is important, and it's really critical as we begin to show up and say, we got to find those safe spaces. And I know that's really hard. And out there in Rise with Diana podcast land, I know it's hard to find those spaces, but speaking up is a good place to start. Story. And I really want us to understand the power of this because, again, that's what made me vibrate to you because of your story. When did you see a shift in
mhm,
your feeling like, I really have a powerful story and I love it? Because you said there was a time where you were like, I don't want people to know,
right.
what I'm. When was it for you? Because I know we all have those. Maybe it's not just one profound moment, but maybe you can think of one thing that made you start to go, I really should dive into this more.
Yeah, I think it's a few chapters.
Mhm.
I think one of the biggest turning points for me was, I've been working in Arizona for a bank, and I didn't manage a lot of people or have a lot of leadership responsibilities, more of a sales and growth and administration. And I got this call from a guy that I used to work with here in Chicago, who now was with another bank, and
Yeah.
they were growing and growing. And he says to me, he goes, Marianne, when are you going to come home? we
Mm,
need you. We need somebody like you to lead this trust department for this super regional bank. And
mhm.
a lot of women look at that and they go, I can't do that. I haven't done that before.
Right.
And for the first time in my life, I'm like, I can do this. This
Yes.
is a turning point because
Yeah.
men don't go, I can't do that. I've never
Right.
done it before. They're like, I'll just do it, right?
Mhm.
For the
Mm.
most part. And so I just and then my marriage had been failing,
Mm.
and I decided I'm going to go back to Chicago where my family is, where my kids can have a life with their grandparents, and I'm going to make some tough decisions despite really working hard at it, counseling, all those things. I just knew. And the funny thing is, I told my then husband about this opportunity and he didn't believe me. And then he
Mm.
said, they're never going to pay you that. And it's like, well, there's your answer. Thank you, God. Uh,
Mhm. Yes.
and so that was a turning point. It was, okay, this marriage is not working, and you can't have your personal life be completely in the gutter and your professional life taking off. You
Say
can't.
that louder for the people in the back.
You can't have your personal life in the gutter and all those things creating so many insecurities about you and and this is what I say to people with
Yeah.
your professional career taking, it's not going to work. They have to be pretty much
Yes.
symbiotic. They can't be
Yeah.
completely aligned at all times. That's not reality, right?
Right.
But when I talk to women in particular, this is what I say: the most important decision you make in your life is not where you go to school. It's not where you live. It's not what religion you practice. It's not the career path that you choose.
Come
It
on.
is who you choose to share it with.
Would you come on? Yes.
The most important
Yes.
decision you make is who you choose, and having that clear communication and goals and aligning that, because that is where I failed.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
don't mind talking about that failure because
Yes.
people, I made the wrong decision the first time around. I did that.
Mhm.
And I own it.
Mhm.
But I spoke to a leadership conference last week or two, I can't remember, 2 weeks ago,
And kick
and
butt.
there was 150 women in the room and a few men, but I shared that story,
Yeah.
and the ability to have that financial freedom too, because I think a lot of women stay for financial reasons. It's
Mhm.
but they're and children, of course. But I made that leap because when I did move back to Chicago and I did take that big job on, my dad unfortunately got cancer, and
Mm.
long story short, told me, practically on his deathbed, when are you going to be happy, Mary Ann? When are you
Mm.
going to be happy?
Be
You
happy.
know? And so I made the decision to file for divorce, and 2.5 long years later, a custody battle almost
Mm.
bankrupted me.
Mm.
It proved to be one of the most courageous moves, and yes, one of the most pivotal times in my life. Because now I'm
Yes.
running, a big division for this bank. I've got all these new people reporting to me, and I'm going through a terrible, terrible litigation, basically,
Mhm. Mhm.
uh, to see who's going to get custody of our kids. And let
Mhm.
me tell you, in the grand scheme of things, a lot of people go through divorce, right? But a
Yeah.
custody battle is a
A whole
being
'nother animal.
in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
But I learned a lot about myself as a woman, as a
Mhm.
working woman,
Mhm.
as a mom,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I really think that moment in my career was pivotal. The other pivotal moment at Wintrust was a little over 6 years ago, getting turned down for a big promotion that I
Yeah.
thought I had.
Yep.
I checked every box off, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And having some folks here, at Wintrust, the company I loved and dedicated my career to, and my leadership to, and
Mhm.
the company at that point had been so good to me, and
Yeah.
I had to take a step back and go, why did this happen to me? Um,
Mm.
and then I have people, higher up tell you, well, we thought that what you were doing now was what was best for you. Don't ever let anybody else tell you what's best for
Come
you.
on.
You know what's best for you. And so
Yeah.
I had a decision to make then. Should I stay or should I
Should
go
I
now?
go? Should I stay or should I go now? Mm, mm, mm,
And
mm.
I made the decision to stay. And the reason why is
Yes.
because I just love this company so much. I love what we were founded upon, where we once
Yes.
were, where we're headed. And I had a tremendous network of support for
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
at that point, I just felt like I could be bitter or I could be better.
Mm,
Chose to be
mm.
better.
I love, you know, I can't express, you guys. There's so much goodness here, and I want to pause just for a moment for you to take that in, right? We're talking about showing up as your authentic self, which I always say when you have imposter syndrome, the root is a lack of identification of who you truly are, right? And loving your story and seeing the failures and all the beautiful opportunities. This ain't something that you just woke up like this. I woke up like this. No, you didn't wake up like this. You had to architecturally create a new vision, a new path for you, utilizing all of the goodness that came from your dad, that came from your childhood, and all these things, and building this new beautiful house. That's what you did because your dad asked you, "When are you gonna be happy?" And you answered that. And so for my listeners out here, know that we are gonna be building together. That's
Yeah.
why we hear these beautiful stories and know that we can you know, lotus flowers come from mud. So we have to look at the mud as a beautiful, beautiful place. You're resilient, aren't you? You rebound things. You have this bounce back. And I just love that about you. You are going to be speaking at the All Rise Live Global Summit. And I want to hear all of this, but what would you say? Because we're going to be talking about all the things dealing with authenticity and mapping out your vision. What how do you like, when you left and you said, "I'm gonna be better, not bitter," did you sit down and start to write down the things that you're going to start to believe about yourself?
Yeah, I don't know if I wrote it down so much as I just took a step back and
Yeah.
decided I'm not going to let this define me.
Yes.
I'm not going to let, and I'm going to take this experience. And look, the person who got the job, I wanted nothing but his success. And I
Right.
wanted nothing but for him to feel what I felt about the company that he was
Mhm,
joining.
mhm.
And so you've got to look at your life and go, you know what? I'm going to concentrate on something else. I'm going to concentrate on
Yes.
being even better at my current role. And
Mhm.
thankfully, at that point, I was in a leadership role, and you know, I was changing lives. Looking at people and seeing something in them, tapping them on the shoulder, and going, I really think you'd be good at this. But
Yeah.
here's what you got to do to get there. Are you going
Mhm.
to put in the work? Because I'll put in the investment in you if you
Yeah.
put in the work. It's that kind of thing. I think I lost sight of the question.
No, you
But
you you answered it perfectly, and how many of y'all want Mary Ann to be your mentor? I know I do, but I wanna ask you a great question we ask every podcast
sure.
interview is, do you feel you're doing your greatest work now, and how would you define your greatest work for you?
So professionally, I do. I really feel I'm at this pinnacle point. I'm like this fairy tale that came true at
Yeah,
57 years old. I'm not even joking, and you're going to make me cry. But
yes,
it's for me. I'm able, as a leader for the Chicago Trust Company, to help people make a living, support their
mhm,
families, and then, of course, grow within their careers and
yes,
instill that love of company that I have.
mhm,
And I see it. And I see it in, one of my employees who I recruited after knowing her for 20 years. I was her boss 20 years ago, and I'm gonna get her. I'm gonna get her. And she'll be celebrating her fourth year here in November. I see personally never giving up,
mm,
just never giving up on. And that's doesn't that sound ironic from somebody who divorced her husband? But
yes,
never give up on your happiness, right?
yes,
It's no, and so I have a lot of friends that are older that are single that have given up on dating.
mm,
And I said to myself, despite all the moving around I did, I lived in Arizona, Illinois, Philadelphia, really enjoyed the many moves that I've had, but I said, I'm never going to give up on love either.
mhm,
And at the, 2017, I was about to say, I'm going to give it a pause. And then I met my current husband and we got married
Yeah.
on 4321
Yes.
and during the pandemic and he balances me and I would say that I'm a lot.
Yeah.
Like I'm a lot to handle and he is the perfect match for handling all of this.
Yes,
I know
and
you
I'm
know what
so
I'm talking
grateful that you're
about,
a lot.
Diana.
Yes, we
You
both
got
are a
that.
lot, but most people who are living and doing their greatest work and know they're being called to do the greatest work know we're a lot for the mission. We have to. But
And
how
to
do you
your
stay grounded? How do you stay what do you do? What's your practice behind the scenes?
Oh, well, I mean, physically, you can't give up. You've got to put in the work. So I do work out, try at least 5 days a week minimum. And
Okay.
that's a combination of many things. I'm learning too that building muscle at any age is very, very important, especially I have a grandson who's about to turn 1 year old. And when I get on the floor, it's more difficult to get back up at
Yeah,
my
yeah,
age.
yeah.
So I'm working on that. I think, finding somebody, because later on in life, looks fade, right?
Mhm.
All that stuff. But you got to sit down. And I said this to myself: is this a person that I can spend the rest of my life with when we're not working, when we're not
Yeah.
dedicated, in retirement and those kind of things? So find a lot of things that you enjoy doing together. We love to cook. We
Mhm.
just bought electric bicycles, so we're going to be that couple.
Oh, that's so
Like
cool. I love it.
incorporating physical activity into your time together. And the
Yes.
other thing that I think is the secret to longevity is, besides nutrition, we really, really try to tackle our nutrition and eat whole foods and not processed foods and things like that. We, I think it's about relationships. I
Mhm.
don't think you're ever too old to form new ones. Look, you and I haven't even known each other
Yes.
a year now, and we're almost
Yeah.
every day on text and
Yes.
talking,
Yes.
and being open to new
Mhm.
relationships. But
Mhm.
I also think the secret is, that friendship base. I have this tribe of women. Oh my God,
Mhm.
what would I do without them? Um,
Yeah.
having somebody in your life that supports that, because I didn't have
Mhm.
that the first time, supports your career. You and I, you were in corporate, you get it, man. You got to have
Mhm.
somebody by your side that's a good corporate husband, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or partner or spouse. You've got
Yeah.
to have somebody that supports that, because if
Yes.
that person is making you feel guilty for, all the evening things you got to do, doing a summit and being out
Right.
of town for a few days,
Yeah.
that's not going to help you be your best self for the people
Right.
attending the summit. You got to have that
Right.
support system. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's about relationships. And when we look at our retirement in the future, we want to be in a community where people golf and people are active, and
Right.
because like begets like. And
Yes.
the sedentary nature of our society today is killing us.
Yes.
So I was just with a prospective client yesterday, and a law professor, and he was talking about how he teaches um, the law of federal regulation for food in the food
Mm.
industry. And I'm just fascinated by that. So I'm going to go to his class just to sit in
Yes.
one day. I mean, it's
Yes.
things like that just constantly keep the brain moving,
Yes.
reading,
Think
listening to podcasts. Music's great. We both love music. I know you love. I wish I could
yeah.
sing like you, but when you're in your car like I am a lot, I listen. I listen to all different kinds of podcasts. They can be economic. They can be self-help. They can be, fashion. They can be how to make a smoky eye. Like I
Yeah.
just,
I know that's right.
you
I
know,
love
and
this.
and
Do
so
you see why this woman's my friend? I
yeah.
mean, you're so fascinating. You're so beautiful in every single way,
Oh,
and there's so many people who need your voice, and I've been encouraging Marianne to speak more and to get on more stages and to be in the universe because we need you. And I'm grateful that you're again joining the All Rise Live Global Summit stage. And I can't wait to have you bless so many of the women who will be there. There's someone out here who's really struggling to trust themselves, and we need to give her some hope today. What's one nugget that you can give to her to help her because she might be listening to us as she's driving. She might be going home crying because she's really feeling lost. She might be wondering, how do I actually speak up? How do I say something to a coworker? What's one piece of advice we can give her from your heart?
I think it's just develop that courage,
Mm,
develop it, sit down with yourself in silence,
mm,
practice, prepare. If you're going to share something that's difficult and you're fearful about it, figure out who your audience is, research, just
yeah.
know. I've been teaching my own children this, the
Yes.
power of the pause.
Mhm.
Silence has so much power. So
Mm,
while you're preparing to have your voice be heard, be silent within yourself. And this is advice I'm giving because I learned from what I did wrong in not
mhm.
silencing myself and being a bit too vocal earlier on in my career
Yeah.
about some things that I could have handled so much more professionally and differently and with more dignity.
Yes.
Um, I guess it's like keep it classy, girl, right?
Yeah, yeah, keep it
And
classy.
yeah, keep it classy and don't be afraid. Look, at one point in my life, I was going through a job change, a cross country move, a parent who was dying, a divorce, and a couple of years later after my divorce, my ex-husband dying in front
Mm,
of our children. So there's so much trauma along the way. And, just don't give up. I know I
mhm,
use this, there was one day I came home. We just had our son. It was a very loose relationship with my employer. One attorney I worked for, he got disbarred. I didn't have a
mm,
job. My husband came home with a pink slip, laid off,
mm.
new baby at home, new house. I mean, at that point, it's like, is this a Lifetime movie? And can I go
Yeah.
cry in the shower? You
Right.
know? But she
Yeah.
just never gave up. I sold Pampered Chef. I did,
Mhm.
contract work. You just never give up, especially when there's other people now, other human beings relying on you. And I
Yes.
think to me, that advice that I got from that mentor years ago, you get what you give. It's now that I'm experiencing getting back, not necessarily accolades, but just the acknowledgement by my
Yes.
children, by younger employees and other people that I mentor, like the acknowledgement of, man, you really went through a lot and look at you
Yeah.
now. So I
Yeah.
think that we let the storms that are occurring in our lives at every chapter, if we let them just be storms, we're never going to go anywhere. Storms
Yes.
storms also fade and they go away and they move. And that's how
Mhm.
my life has been. It's been a constant move, but it's never been a straight line, ever.
I love
The
it.
sooner you
Yeah.
realize that it's never going to be a straight line, um, the better off you'll be. And one of the characteristics I look for in employees when I'm hiring is adaptability.
Yes.
Being able to adapt to different situations and change. I look for
Yeah.
people too that were in customer service and deal. I'd rather hire the person that was a waitress dealing with crabby
Yeah.
customers and
Customer.
working her tail off than somebody with a 5.0 GPA. That doesn't tell me much
Yes.
if you don't have any life experiences.
Yes.
That
Yes. This is so I hope y'all take time to rewind that part because I really want us to really see as I said, the architecture of this beautiful life called Marianne to let us know it's not a straight line. It's not a straight line. And as we started this podcast, we heard about removing mediocrity and really digging into this thing called I am committed to myself. I'm committed to myself so that you're committed to yourself. Then you realize you can take the pieces of you and give it to your employer. Marianne, thank you for you. Girl, so
thank you.
good. Can y'all give her a round of applause? Give her a round of applause. I'm so grateful for you taking the time to be with me today, and I cannot wait to see you in Chicago.
I can't wait to see you again too. Thank you
Where
so much,
can we learn
Diana.
more from you? Can we follow you somewhere? Can we give you
Yeah,
like
follow me on LinkedIn.
yes,
I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. Not on Twitter yet, but
yeah,
thinking about that as well
y
too.
yeah.
So there's a
Well,
there's a
you'll
few podcasts out there.
You will see her at the All Rise Live Global Summit, and you will see us in a lot of pictures together because this is gonna be my girl for the rest of my life as if I could have any say in it. Say so thank you so much, ladies. And people in Rides with Diana podcast land, like, subscribe, share, and we cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, girl. Take care.